Chapter 11, Dreams, Messages from the Depths, inspired by Carl Jung and James Hillman. In this conversation, we follow two explorers of the inner night, Carl Jung and James Hillman. Jung saw dreams as the small hidden door to the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul. He believed the images that arrive while we sleep are not random leftovers of daily life, but communications from the unconscious, the vast, mysterious field that lives underneath the ego. Hillman, decades later, pushed this view even further. He said we must not dissect dreams like corpses or translate them into moral lessons. Instead, we should dialogue with them as living beings, honoring their language, their poetry. For Hillman, the dream is not something to be solved. It is soul itself speaking in images. The purpose of dreams. Modern psychology often defines dreaming as the brain's way of processing memories or regulating emotion. Jung wouldn't deny that, but he added depth. Dreams also carry symbolic messages about the parts of the psyche left unattended. When we forget an aspect of our personality, a feeling, a creativity, an instinct, it often reappears as a dream figure. The psyche, he said, is self-regulating. Just as the body creates fever to fight imbalance, the dream creates imagery to restore inner harmony. A frequent dream of being chased, for example, might not mean danger outside. It could mean we are running from something inside. An emotion, a truth, a responsibility. We dream not to escape life, but to re-enter it with more awareness. Dreams are not essays, they are poems. They speak through metaphor, exaggeration, association. Where the waking mind uses logic, the dreaming mind uses symbol. A house might be the image of the self. A journey might be growth. Water might point to emotion. Death might mean renewal. Jung warned against rigid interpretation. He said, no dream symbol can be separated from the individual who dreams it. The meaning arises in dialogue between the symbol and the dreamer. Hillman compared it to listening to art. You don't ask a painting to tell you what it means. You let it work on you. So instead of asking, what does this mean? Try asking, what image in this dream is alive for me right now? Let's imagine you dream that you're walking through an old house. Room by room, the lights turn on as you pass until you find a locked door in the basement. You search for the key, but wake before finding it. The literal mind might say, it means unresolved issues, and yes, perhaps. But the psychological mind might ask, who am I in the dream? The explorer or the door? Maybe both. What is the feeling tone? Fear, curiosity, belonging. When you reflect gently like that, the dream starts dialoguing back. It's less about decoding and more about listening with imagination. Night as psychological landscape. Jung described the psyche as a house with many rooms. The ego, the waking consciousness, occupies a small, well-lit corner. The rest remains in shadow until we dream. In dreams, the walls dissolve. People long gone return. Animals speak. We experience possibility without censorship. This is not delusion. It's the psyche's way of balancing the rigidity of daylight mind. Hillman called this the imaginal realm, a world as real as waking life, but made of soul substance, not matter. Dreams are its nightly invitations to visit. How to approach dreams. 1. Remember. Keep a notebook beside your bed. Upon waking, write even fragments, images, sensations, phrases. The moment you move, most dreams fade. 2. Describe, don't explain. Instead of "I dreamt of a scary monster," meaning my anxiety, write, "A huge black animal breathing smoke near the door." Description preserves the energy of the dream longer than analysis. 3. Notice emotion. Dreams speak as much through feeling as image. What emotion lingers on waking terror? Awe, sadness, relief. 4. Amplify, don't reduce. Ask what cultural or personal associations the images evoke. For instance, snakes may mean danger, wisdom, transformation. See what resonates. 5. Dialogue. In journaling or imagination, speak with the dream figures. Ask them why they came. It may sound strange, but the psyche answers in surprising ways. The dream as conversation. For Jung, each dream is a message in the ongoing correspondence between consciousness and the unconscious. Neglecting dreams is like ignoring half of our mail. He once told a patient who dismissed her dreams, "It would be like cutting the telephone line with the part of yourself that knows more than you do." This doesn't mean the dream is smarter than the ego. It holds different wisdom, a wisdom of depth, where opposites coexist. Hope and fear, life and death, love and aggression. When we listen to dreams, we acknowledge that the human mind is not a machine, but a mythic landscape. Example, the man and the sea. Jung recounted a dream from a patient who often controlled everything in his waking life. Perfectionist, executive, precise. One night, he dreamt he stood by a wild sea. Huge waves crashed near his feet. He felt terrified but couldn't move. When they explored it, Jung suggested hesitatingly that the sea might represent everything the man excluded: emotion, spontaneity, unpredictability. In following weeks, the man began painting, something he hadn't done since youth. He described it as wading into the sea. The dream's purpose wasn't interpretation. It was invitation to encounter life more fully. Hillman insisted that we approach dreams ethically, that is, with respect and humility. Dreams are not there to serve egoic goals like success or self-improvement. They belong to soul, which values depth more than comfort. He wrote, "We must care for the soul of the dream, not force it into daylight meanings." That means sometimes sitting with mystery, letting ambiguity teach patience. A dream unanswered is not a failure. It is an ongoing question. Many artists have drawn inspiration from their dreams. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Paul McCartney's melody for yesterday, Salvador Dali's melting clocks, each emerged from nocturnal imagination. Dream consciousness is the playground of innovation because it bypasses rational censorship. If we learn to harvest it gently, it fuels both art and insight. Jung even encouraged his patients to paint their dreams, bringing the inner imagery into visible form. Today, this survives in active imagination practices, writing, drawing, movement, to communicate with the unconscious. When dream language enters daylight, creativity becomes therapy, and therapy becomes art. The shadow in dreams. Earlier, we spoke of the shadow, those repressed elements of self. Dreams are their preferred stage. Figures that threaten or embarrass us often personify traits we've denied. Meeting them consciously softens inner conflict. In nightmares, the shadow shouts. In recurring dreams, it repeats until heard. Once acknowledged, its tone shifts from menace to guidance. A figure chasing you may, when turned to face, become an ally. Listening to dreams gradually restores something lost in modern culture. A sense of enchantment. We begin to see the symbolic dimension not only at night, but in waking life. The song that appears at a crucial moment, the coincidences that form invisible threads. Jung called these synchronicities meaningful coincidences connecting inner and outer events. They are dreams extended into daylight. When you learn to live symbolically, existence itself becomes conversation, the psyche speaking through the world. For centuries, the modern mind has been taught to see the world as a system of mechanisms. We have learned to measure, to classify, to explain. But in the process, we have forgotten how to listen. Jung once lamented that modern humanity has displaced the gods into machines. He meant that what older cultures experienced as numinous powers, the forces of nature, the play of fate, we now describe only in material terms. Physics, economy, biology. Nothing wrong with knowledge. It gives us mastery and safety. But when explanation erases mystery, life flattens into data. The psyche hungers for depth, and when deprived of it, turns numb or anxious. Dreams arrive as the psyche's rebellion against this flatness. They whisper, there is still magic in reality. Come and see again. The meaning of re-enchantment. Re-enchantment doesn't mean returning to superstition or denying science. It means restoring symbolic vision, seeing life as layered, literal and metaphorical at once. Hillman titled one of his lectures, Revisioning Psychology. He proposed that psychology should no longer try to make the soul conform to daylight logic, but to reimagine the world through the soul's eyes. For him, the re-enchantment of the world begins the moment we notice the invisible conversation between inner and outer events. A sudden rain after long silence, a song appearing just when we felt lost, an animal that crosses our path and stirs recognition. These may be coincidences, but they can also be intimate gestures of the psyche speaking through matter. When the world is ray enchanted, we no longer experience ourselves as minds inside bodies, separate from nature. We experience being part of a total field of meaning. In Jung's terms, ray enchantment is learning to see through. To look at something is to view it as object. To see through it is to perceive it as symbol, as image alive with significance. A tree can be cellulose, chlorophyll, trunk, and roots, and also vertical prayer, axis between earth and heaven. A dream about a house can be architecture, and also the structure of your psyche. A stranger's glance can be mere psychology, and also a mythic encounter, Hermes delivering a message. Seeing through is not illusion, it adds dimension. It teaches us to inhabit a world suffused with imagination, rather than drained of it. Hillman reclaimed an older term, animism, the belief that all things possess soul, but he reframed it psychologically. He said, "The world is not out there. It's in the very act of our imagining. When we dream, we experience chairs, oceans, cats, winds as vividly alive, because psychically they are. They are manifestations of psyche speaking in countless voices. Ray enchantment is bringing that dream-like participation back into waking life, without losing critical mind. It's letting the heart respond to beauty or emotion without embarrassment. Modern anxiety often comes from emotional starvation. We live among objects, but not presences. To greet the world as ensouled again is to heal that divide. Synchronicity, Jung's word for meaningful coincidence, is one bridge between dream and everyday life. When an internal state and an external event coincide meaningfully without causal link, we glimpse the fabric connecting matter and mind. A friend calls while you think of them. A childhood song plays in the cafe as you recall that same memory. A book falls open at the paragraph, numbing your dilemma. Statistically trivial, emotionally vast. Such moments cannot be scheduled or proven, but they fill us with awe because they suggest that the universe is responsive, that psyche and cosmos are interwoven. The more attentively you live, the more often these correspondences occur, not because life rewards belief, but because your perception has widened to catch them. Ray enchantment doesn't require visions or miracles. It often begins in the simple act of perceiving daily life through mythic eyes. Hillman said, "We are living mythic figures without recognizing them." The teacher guiding students carries Hermes, messenger archetype. The entrepreneur inventing new systems channels Prometheus, the fire bringer. The exhausted parent on the couch reenacts Atlas holding the sky. When we interpret ordinary scenes with symbolic awareness, we realize life itself behaves like a dream dense with metaphor. For the modern self, desperately seeking identity, this recognition is medicine. You are not isolated ego. You are character in an unfolding story older than you. Example The broken clock. A woman feels trapped in repetition. Same job, same mistakes. One morning, the old clock in her kitchen stops at 9:17 a.m. Exactly when she sighs, "I can't keep living like this." Days later, she dreams of walking through a garden where clocks melt into blossoms. She wakes laughing and buys a small plant the next day. Nothing mystical, perhaps. Or perhaps her soul used the clock to speak. Time can grow, not just tick. Enchantment doesn't ask belief, it asks noticing. And noticing changes everything. Poetic attention. The philosopher Simone Weil wrote, "Attention, taken to its highest degree, is the same as prayer." Enchantment is precisely that, cultivating poetic attention toward reality. To pause during busyness and actually see the light on the wall, the child's gesture, the pattern of leaves. To regard these not merely as stimuli, but as experiences of communion. In a enchanted life, every perception can become conversation. The world imagines you back. That perception softens fear of meaninglessness. You begin to feel companioned by existence itself. This symbolic awareness also stabilizes the psyche. When everything is literal, problems appear unsolvable. Failure is failure, loss is end, conflict is threat. When imagination participates, meaning springs up again. Failure becomes initiation, loss becomes descent, conflict becomes dialogue. Jung noticed that people who attend to their dreams, symbols, and coincidences develop stronger centers. They suffer deeply, but despair less, because meaning buffers chaos. Enchantment, then, is not escapism. It is ethical realism, engaging the world with soul as partner, not property. Practicing enchantment. You can nurture this vision with small steps. 1. Keep dream and waking journals side by side. Record not only what you dream, but notable images or coincidences. By day, treat both as messages from the same source. 2. Revisit art and nature. Stand before a painting or a tree and let it look back at you. Ask, "What do you want me to notice?" 3. Cultivate thresholds. The moments between sleeping and waking, dusk and dawn, indoors and outdoors. These transitional spaces restore continuity between inner and outer worlds. 4. Speak symbolically sometimes. Instead of saying, "I had a bad day," try, "Today the tide pulled hard." Metaphor revives psyche's language. These gestures retrain perception to experience life not as flat terrain, but as layered tapestry. Hillman maintained that enchantment is not self-indulgence, but moral act. A disenchanted world is easy to exploit. Lifeless matter invites manipulation. An ensouled world demands care. When river and forest become symbols of psyche, pollution becomes psychic desecration. Ecological responsibility becomes psychological hygiene. Feeling connected makes us gentler toward nature, toward people, toward time itself. Thus, enchantment heals not only perception, but behavior. Walking through a dream. If you'd like, close your eyes for a moment. Recall a dream, recent or old. See it as if happening now, without forcing sense. Notice environment, colors, people, animals, feelings. Now imagine that you can pause the dream and step inside it consciously. Who are you there? How do you move? What attracts or frightens you? Gently approach one figure or symbol that seems important. Ask quietly, what do you want me to know? Do not chase an answer. Let the image change, drift, or fade. Whatever arises, thank it silently. When you open your eyes, jot down what you remember, not as certainty, but as dialogue begun. Jung believed that the goal of life was the realization of the self, the reconciliation of our conscious and unconscious worlds. Dreams are daily steps toward that reconciliation. They remind us that beneath reason lives imagination. Beneath civilization lives myth. Beneath personality lives soul. So next time you wake from a dream, resist the urge to say, "It was just a dream." Instead, whisper, "Part of me spoke while I slept. Tonight, I will listen more carefully, and perhaps you'll find that the boundary between night and day, between outer reality and inner meaning, is thinner than you thought, and that somewhere in the depths, your own unconscious is still painting stories meant to guide you home."